Hello again. Welcome to the Marc Oslar Retirement Experience. My name is Randy Cook, and each week Mark and I sit down here and talk through some of the things that you might be wondering about, concerned about. Maybe it's kind of in the back of your mind that one of these days I got to sit down and talk to somebody about my retirement. Well, that's why we have this show. What does that process look like? How do you benefit from that? What are you missing if you try to do it yourself? That's the kind of thing we talk about here on this show, and how you can get some help as well. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Randy. I'm just looking forward to having an honest conversation with some folks out there today. Let's do some financial talk here, Randy. What do you have for me?
Well, I got a lot, because here's something that I've been thinking about, because, like in the movies, sometimes you'll watch a movie and something bad will happen in the movie, and then it'll fade to black, and then it'll say 3 years later. And then they pick up the story at that point. So, that person went through all the difficulties that they had to go through, and now they're okay, and now the story continues. I think that there's a lot of people out there right now that are kind of saying the same thing with their money. They're saying, get me to the other side of this economically, interest-wise, recession talk, politically, the midterms. There's just a lot to say. Gosh, just get me through the summer, get me into the fall, get me past all this. And in the meantime, they do nothing. They just sit and they watch their investments go up and down. This certainly is somebody who's getting ready for retirement. So let's talk to that person right now, because really, aren't they kind of sitting in the back of their mind just going, I hope I'm okay. I think I'm okay. I'm actually scared to go see Mark because he might tell me I'm not okay. So what happens if somebody comes in and that's their mindset? What's the process that you go through to try to figure out, are they going to be okay?
And this is the part of the job that I truly enjoy and love. Let me ask you, if that's you out there, that you're just uncertain that you're going to retire at a certain age and a certain point, let's have a conversation, because this is what we love to do here. Here's one of the things that I like to bring up, Randy. Let's say, for example, we are struggling with the fact that maybe you had bought some insurance products in the past. Maybe you bought an index universal life insurance policy, or you bought an annuity, and it was sometime between the time of 2016 to 2021, right? Well, Randy, interest rates were really low then, right?
Right.
So these insurance products, the way they're priced, the caps, the rates, things like that, they just weren't in a good place. So a lot of people that did stuff like that for precautionary reasons, maybe for some future retirement planning, got just turned off by the idea of insurance products, annuities, things like that, right? Mm-hmm. And this was a part of the retirement plan. And now they feel like they're behind the eight ball because things haven't performed or done what you've expected them to do. And then there's the other folks that they have their money, in the market, and they're following it every day, and they're just like, am I getting to the level I need to be? And is this going to produce the income I needed to produce in retirement? All these questions out there. These are the questions we love to sit down and have a conversation about, because I need to understand the big picture. If I understand the big picture, understand from the very big treetop view of what you're trying to accomplish, I could be of assistance here. Mm-hmm. I could be of help. And yes, you can come in free of charge. We can have a conversation.
Well, one of the things that I think about, a lot of us don't make big financial moves in our life according to what the headlines are, but I think we all know that, if you had an interest rate on your mortgage at 7 or 8%, and then the interest rates went down, and then you say, well, I could refinance now and get a 4% rate, and then they went down, and you could get 2.5%, you might have done that. And that's a little bit what we're talking about here, Mark, because as interest rates went up, there are certain financial products that benefit from that. I mean, annuities and things like that, CDs, money markets, that kind of stuff, that safe side of the ledger that we talk about, that more conservative side that we talk about all the time. So it's kind of the same mindset, isn't it?
It is. And there are different types of bonuses on annuities. I heard other advisors talk about it as funny money before, but there are those bonuses. They're not real bonuses. What they are, they're bonuses that go on to produce for or calculating income, right? Mm-hmm. So that's an income-based bonus. It's not a real bonus on your accumulation value or your death benefit. But then there are real bonuses on your accumulation value and death benefit. Let me tell you something, Randy. They're at an all-time high. Mm-hmm. I've never seen them even close to this high before, which encourages me to say, yes, a lot of you out there that might have some of the products that were priced incorrectly or in a place where things were low and not great, you can get out of those products for better products. It's possible to do that. We can have a real conversation about that. We're talking about market money. Yes, we're going to talk about market money as well, but just addressing where interest rates are at. Yeah, maybe you refied, with regards to getting a low interest rate for your mortgage. Great. Stay in that position. But if you're in a position where you realize you're pricing your investments, you're pricing your CDs versus multi-year guarantee annuities, you're pricing fixed index annuities where they were versus where they're at now, I can tell you rates, caps, things like that, bonuses, they're higher than I've ever seen them.
Yeah, and I think that if you don't follow the financial news real regularly, you probably know this guy's name, Jerome Powell. He is moving out of being the head of the Fed, and a new guy is coming in. His name is Kevin Warsh, and they said for so long that the idea was to lower interest rates. Now, because of where inflation is and gas prices and all that, now the thought is they're going to be raising interest rates. So what Mark is talking about, there may be even some more benefits here. I mean, we've thrown around the term, this is the golden age of fixed income. Sit down and talk to a financial advisor. They'll tell you that they've not seen rates like this for fixed income products for years. This might be the time. So if you're 1 year, 2 years, 3 years away from retirement, maybe now's the time where you lock in some of that money, even though you're not going to retire for a couple of years. Come in. Let's have the conversation about you, your concerns about retirement. Here's the number and here's the website, 984-300-1984. It's a no-cost, no-obligation look at your retirement and how you're doing. What's it look like? What's your check going to look like in retirement? What's Social Security going to look like? Are you concerned about health care? Let's get it all out there. 984-300-1984 or use the website, which is more2retire.com. So a lot of us have 401ks, and in those 401ks, there are things called target date funds. Those are the ones that sit there and they have the dates next to them. You'll see it'll say 2030, 2035, 2040, 2045, and you're supposed to kind of move your money there according to what your retirement year is. And Mark has warned us, I don't like these things for a lot of years. But I looked into how many people have money in target date funds. There is now $4.8 trillion in target date funds, and that is up 20% from last year. So no matter what we say, I guess they're not listening out there. But so, Mark, this is a pretty common thing. Somebody comes in, and the idea of a target date fund seems really simple. As I get toward retirement, my risk goes down. And this thing does it for me automatically. Seems like a great idea, great marketing. What do you see in real life, and why is it that you're not a big fan of target date funds?
Let me ask you something, Randy. Do you remember a show years ago by the Wayans brothers called In Living Color?
I do.
So they used to have a little segment where they would bring up something, a subject or whatever, and they'd say, loved it or hated it. Well, let me tell you, target date funds, hated it. You remember that, don't you?
I do remember that.
Of course. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why, okay? There's probably other funds available that we could look at. And literally, all we have to do is pull up our computer, pull up past history of how these funds have performed, look at the internal expense ratio, and answer some serious questions about what's the right fit, what's the wrong fit for you, and how we can allocate you in this. So if you're my client, you automatically, if you're stuck in this 401k because you're not 59 and a half yet, or let's just say, you haven't left the job and so you're still at that same position, or you rolled it over, or you want to keep some money in the 401k, you really just want to keep some there. Okay, you're my client. Come in, let's go over what you have available, and we'll dissect it and figure out, based on what you're telling me, what's a good fit for you. It's not going to be rocket science. We're going to actually just spend some time together and do this in person, and you'll figure out how to allocate yourself, and that's what we'll do for you.
So the idea of moving your risk back, less risk as you go to retirement, this is what the target date fund is supposed to do. But I have seen studies that show that, like, they looked at those in 2008, and it didn't pull back the risk as much as people thought they would. Here they are in this thing that they thought would preserve their wealth, and they found out it's losing almost as much as a mutual fund. And that's not what you want as you get close to retirement.
No, I mean, you even see some ones that are still 2025. I know we're past that year, but that's about as conservative as it gets when you see those, right? These life cycle funds. But essentially, when you have a situation like this, yes, what if you're thinking, oh, I'm supposed to get more conservative, and all of a sudden the market tanks, and it tanks with the rest of everything else? That has to do with correlation, okay? If things are moving in the same direction and the market corrects, you could correct the same way. So how do we identify that? We run a financial report. So we'll run a financial report on your 401k, and when we run that report, it will tell us certain factors, right? Randy's favorite one, the standard deviation, right?
The wobble
effect. So in particular, once we understand how we match up a standard deviation, we compare and contrast to explain to people to kind of keep it as simple as possible. Keep it simple, stupid, right? KISS, the KISS motto. So what we try to do is look at the standard deviation and the beta. The standard deviation is going to give us the understanding of how it compares to the S&P 500 standard deviation. And then we look at the beta, which is a scientific risk. And we look at the standard S&P's 1.0 beta, and how this compares to that. And sometimes people don't realize that their beta is very similar to the S&P 500 or above it, simply because they have stocks or equities moving in the same direction. And that has an impact on a portfolio.
Yep. All that business of trying to figure out how much risk I want in retirement. Do you want the jiggliest thing out there? Probably not. Are you going to get into hedge funds and private equity and Bitcoin? Probably not. Maybe a little bit, but that might not be the biggest part of your retirement portfolio. Most of us want to be kind of conservative. 3, 4, 5% is going to be just fine. Let's figure out who you are, what your risk level is, how far you are from retirement. How does that all match up? Looking on all the options out there, where to place your money. This is a really good exercise, I think, to find out what your money's doing, how it's performing. Are there any anchors in there? What I mean by that is there something holding you back? Is there something holding you back? Let's figure that out together. Here's the number. Here's the website for Mark. It's 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984 or more2retire.com. Just spell that right out. More2retire.com. That's the website. There's a place for you to put some information in there. Mark will reach out to you and just start the conversation. All right, so writing a check to Uncle Sam on April 15th really is a drag. And for those of you who are very successful, make a lot of money, you know what I'm talking about. And then you figure, I'm going to get into retirement, my income will be less, and suddenly the refund checks will start coming. Yeah, maybe not. I'm looking at an article in front of me that says maybe not so much. Taxes will still be your number one expense in retirement. Mark, have you seen anybody who comes in who kind of thinks that way? Or it's a little bit of a disappointment when they get into retirement, all of a sudden they're writing checks and they come to you and go, what is going on? How do I change this? Is it possible to change that dynamic?
Of course it is. Unless you have it all fixed in place, then it's not changeable, right? That you can't change something that you're not willing to change on your own end yourself. And if there are things set in place that you know you can't change, well, I can't do anything about it. But the interchangeable things, the things that you've done, that you've set up for income, how you're drawing the income, where you're taking it from, every one of those things can be looked at and managed differently. So we stand by our motto here, the acronym PIG, Preservation, Income, and Growth. And I don't waver from this, Randy. This is standard practice of how we go about things. And this is it. Preservation and income go together. All right. We want preservation tactics built and put in place for income. Now, how do we apply that? We apply that by understanding what taxes and inflation are going to do to this income now and in the future. So we want to be prepared for that. If you're paying too much in taxes in retirement, it's because of how you're taking the money. The question is, can we change it or not? Of course, it's always up for discussion. Maybe we can. Maybe we can't. But what I can tell you is it's a good conversation for us to have because we want to put preservation tactics in place for the income, understand where it's coming from, and affect it properly by being prepared for taxes and inflation. Then, if we've done that, the rest of the portfolio can grow sensibly or aggressively, however you want to do it. And we can, put some plans in place to maybe even take more income from maybe some areas that might be income tax free. So let's have that conversation. And if you haven't planned that far ahead, and let's say you have 10 years more of work before you retire, let's have a real conversation about that as well and what we can do to put in place so you have some areas that aren't all taxable in retirement.
Yeah, it used to be in our parents' time, our biggest retirement asset would be they sell the house. And that was what they would retire on. They have their savings and maybe there's a pension or something like that. They sell their house and that's going to be how they go through retirement with those funds. But for many of us, that's not the way it's going to be. Our biggest retirement asset is our 401k. And that thing is loaded with taxes. And that means you get into retirement, it's still loaded with taxes. So let's sit down and talk about that. Do you take a little bit from here and a little bit from there and try to, lessen that tax blow in retirement? It takes a strategy to build with your income and your taxes together. Give Mark a call. Here's the number, 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984, or the website is more2retire.com. Just spell that right out there, more2retire.com. And when I think about that, Mark, we talked about the changes that you have to deal with when you get into retirement. I mean, there's one thing there, you spent 40, 60 hours a week working. Now all of a sudden you got to fill all that. That's a big change. But the same thing is with how we get paid. I mean, we've been paid every 2 weeks from an employer for our whole life. Now we're getting into something like Social Security is going to pay us. Maybe a pension pays us. We're going to take capital gains, which we've never done before. There's this thing called RMDs, and we've never done that before. There's all this stuff that we've never done before. So you go to a financial advisor and you say, am I going to be okay? And they go, yeah, we're going to be just fine. And I'm going, really? This is so new to me. This is so different to me, how I'm going to live in my retirement years. What does it take, Mark, to show somebody on paper that they're going to be okay and they actually believe you, if that makes any sense?
Oh, wow. I got to tell you, it's true. I mean, when I listen to you guys out there, and I'm talking directly to you. If you want to know if you're going to be okay in retirement, we have the answers why as well, not just you're going to be okay. No. Here's why you're going to be okay. Let's build the income. Let's prepare and affect your lives in a positive way so that you feel confident. Because what I want my clients to have some skin in the game. I want them to know why. Some other advisors say, oh, you're good. And then people are thinking, I don't know if I'm good. Mm-hmm. He hasn't really told me why I'm good. Well, I'll tell you why you're good, okay? This is a conversation we have. I want you to know why you're set up and where this money's coming from and why. And you might have that same question every year or every other year to understand how and why, because I'm the one doing it, but you're going to be a part of this. You're going to be a big part of this because you're going to want to know, and I'm going to want to answer those questions for you. So when you work with us, you become part of our family. We're going to give you ongoing support. We're going to be there for you. But most importantly, we're going to empower you. We're going to give power back to you so you feel empowered about why you can make these decisions in retirement, why you can go on those trips, why you can spend more time with your grandkids, why you can have the income and the tax level might not be overbearing for you in retirement. We can tell you why.
You're listening to the Marc Oslar Retirement Experience. Online, you can find Mark at more2retire.com. To sit and have that meeting with Mark, here's a number. It's 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984. That's a no-cost, no-obligation look at your retirement. And Mark, I'm probably describing myself in this particular incident here, but I envision people in your conference room, and they're all twisted up. They got their arms folded in front of them right here in front of their chest, and their legs are crossed, and they're sitting back there, and they're going, okay, dude, show me the money. And at what point, when you show them the math of their retirement, do they kind of sit back in their chair, put their arms in back of their neck, and go, oh, okay, I get it now? Is that when you start talking about the paycheck, the income? What moment is that when people go kind of relax about things?
So First and foremost, I was born in Philadelphia, raised in South Jersey. My mother was born in Italy, so I'm half Italian. And that side of the family, I've always been eating really good Italian food growing up, all right? And part of me is if somebody comes in my office and they say, "What do you got?" I'm going to look back at them and say, "Well, what do you got?" Okay? Because that's the point. We're going to do this little standoff for a while because this is my business. I take it serious, and I love to have a conversation and meet people that really care. But if you really are balled up and you can't share and you can't get across your points and you don't trust anybody, then it's going to be hard to work with you. But if you let your guard down a little bit to just share information, have a conversation, and allow us to be able over time to prove to you that we actually care, that we actually will do the work, and we will affect change in a positive way in your life, we can answer those questions for you. So if you have questions about Social Security, if you have questions about that thing called IRMA with the last 2 years before you retire and turn on Social Security and Medicare and the premiums and all that stuff, if you have questions about what income might look like in retirement now versus the future, if you have questions about taxes, and if we have to involve a tax professional, we will, okay? And then estate planning. We've got great attorneys we can work with here. And then there are other plans out there. I know some groups that have incredible tax advantage strategies that I'll link up with and get my clients working with them. Some incredible things. If you have a question, if you have an appreciable business out there or a piece of real estate and you don't want to go back into doing a Delaware statutory trust, or you don't want to do a new opportunity zone next year, you don't want to do those types of things, I know folks you can talk to. So the point is, whatever you're dealing with, whatever your situation might be in retirement or you're coming up on retirement and you have these questions, let's just lay it all out and have a conversation. And if you don't see where this conversation is going after one or two appointments, perfectly fine. You can come to my office, shake my hand anytime you want, and be a friend. I'm going to be in this Cary and Raleigh community for a long time to come. My office is 919 Kildare Farm Road. I'm right down the street from Cary Arts Center and downtown Cary Park. We want to affect people's lives in a positive way, answer questions for you, and make you feel empowered about what retirement looks like for you.
Yeah, this whole couple of segments here that we're talking about here is to literally get you in a chair, talk about your retirement, and get you to the point where you can kind of lean back and relax and exhale and go, okay, that's what I was looking for. I just need that green light that I understand. I know what my money's doing. I know that money is there. I know where it's coming from. I know what I've got coming tax-wise, and we've got a strategy for that. This is when you kind of lean back. And I think I want everybody to have that moment so that you can sit down and not just wonder about retirement, understand and know about retirement. Give Mark a call. Here's the number, 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984. It's a no-cost, no-obligation look at your retirement. Lots of questions, lots of listening. Let's get that date on a calendar. MoreToRetire.com is the website. You can start there as well. There's a place for you to put some information in there, and Mark will get going on that and give you a call. We're going to take a break and come right back with more of the Marc Oslar Retirement Experience.
A simple piece of paper. It's something we use every day. For the most part, it does what it's designed to do. It sits there flat on your desk as a placeholder for information. But with a couple strategic folds, suddenly your flat piece of paper becomes an airplane and flies across the room. Your 401k is kind of like that flat piece of paper. It just sits there as a placeholder for your money. Marc Oslar can show you those strategic moves to take your 401k from just sitting there to creating the income you need for retirement. Call today for a free no-obligation meeting. 984-300-1984. That's 984-300-1984. Or online at moretoretire.com.
Welcome back to the Marc Oslar Retirement Experience. Online, it is moretoretire.com. Check out the website today. You'll See what Marc does to help people in their retirement years, to get them into that place where they feel more secure about this whole business of running out of money. That's a fear for everybody. Let's try to X that right off the table. Here's the number, 984-300-1984. Well, some people love the stock market. Some people hate the stock market. But nobody likes to lose money. That is for sure. And as we get closer to retirement, we probably want to dial back a little bit on that risk that we have in the stock market. So the thing is, though, that we know we need growth. That's a part of what we talk about every week, Marc. PIG, preservation, income, growth. Let's talk about that growth area right now. I'm reading an article here that says if you don't like risk and you don't like the stock market, here's a place to go. Use utility ETFs. Less volatility and pretty good returns. So if somebody is adverse to the stock market, is this something that you might look at? Or what are other options that people might look at that are a little bit lower risk, but they still have that upside of growth that we need in the stock market?
This is an interesting one, Randy. So if you're trying to make money on using equity ETFs, we've got a list of several ETFs that have performed well, over 1, 3, 5 years. Ones that are going to probably be main players, stick around for a long time, right? If you're looking to reduce risk and risk exposure, the first place I look, if we're not talking about fixed index annuity, which is the first place I look for preservation tactics, okay? If we're not looking at that, we'll talk about structured notes, or we'll talk about ETFs that link to structured notes where there's things called buffers and barriers. And buffers and barriers are a way to have some protection on your money. That's what they call them, protective barriers or protective buffers. The way they work essentially is, let's say the particular structured note or ETF that's linked to a structured note, let's say the index goes down and it goes down by, say, 20%, they might have a buffer that says 20%, right? If it goes down 25, what'll happen is the bank will take that 20% loss and you'll only take a 5% loss. Now, if it's a barrier, it's a little different. A lot of times barriers are usually 30% as opposed to a buffer being 20%. So barrier gives you a little bit more of that preservation, right? Let's say if it goes down 35%, well, you don't lose 5, you lose all 35. Okay. But if it goes down 30, you don't lose anything. Okay, so that's the difference of buffer and barriers. If it breaks the barrier, the entire loss is yours. If it breaks the buffer, you only lose what breaks the buffer.
Got it. So one of the things about retirement, and when we have this conversation about using the stock market, when you think about you buy a house, there's risk. When you buy a house, a tree could fall on your house like it did on mine, or you could have a fire. So you buy insurance to transfer the risk. You buy a car. You got to have insurance. Why? Because it's expensive when you get in an accident, so you transfer the risk. In retirement, Marc, can we transfer the risk? Can we do the same thing by putting our money in different places and different buckets?
Yes. Let me ask you, when did a tree fall in your house?
It was about 2 years ago, and it was awful.
Oh, that's terrible.
$150,000 worth of damage. And
that's right.
Oh, it was awful. It was just...
Did it displace you for a minute?
4.5 months. Yeah, we had to live in a hotel for 4.5 months. So,
now, who wants to take that kind of risk in retirement?
It was not.
Yeah,
good.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
You can find different buckets of money. This is what we talk about. So preservation, income, and growth. So let's say we do find a little area where we're saying, okay, we have a $2 million portfolio. Let's take $500,000, put it in a fixed index annuity. Might be designed for income, might be designed for, let's say, preservation growth, right? So if you have the combination of those two things, what if you could do both? You can do both. And there are ways where people tell me, well, these index annuities, they don't make money. Well, sorry, come in my office and let me show you some of my clients' returns. Of course, I'm not going to show their information, but I'll show you some returns, and they're legitimate returns. There are some indexes out there that are performing very well in these market conditions. So we can have this conversation because fixed index annuities, they don't have any downside risk, meaning that if the market goes down, they're not going to go down with the market. Now, they might take some time to lock in 1 or 2 years, but remember, that's what you're looking for, preservation tactic. Okay, So you've got that. Now you're looking at structured notes, or maybe an ETF built in with some structured notes or buffers or barriers like we discussed before. And then we have the market money. That's the growth money. That's the money where we can take some risk, and we take the risk that you want to take, the level of risk that you want to take. I had a client come see me. He had a bunch of annuities and he had some market money, and it took him a little bit, but he decided, hey, let's have a conversation about the market money. And really what it was is he was in a very static position, a 40-60 model. I said, look, let's just flip you to a 60-40. Give me a shot. And, the thing is performing exceptionally well compared to where he was before. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that's always going to happen. All right. But what I'm sharing with you is that we have some positions and some things that we do differently than if you're just working with static advisors. All right. What I want you to know is that we're custom here. We want to do things for you in a way that you feel confident that we know what we're doing. And we are very confident in what we do. If you're just out there working with people where, oh, let's switch to here, let's switch to there, let's do this, let's do that, or you're a DIYer. Well, let's compare what you're doing versus what we're doing here. So on the growth model, we can do things a little differently, and we'd love to share that information with you. So preservation, income, and growth. Get those preservation tactics built in place for the income. Let's make sure we're taking into account taxes and inflation, and then let's grow everything else, and let's grow it sensibly in retirement.
We talk about preservation, income, and growth. And if you're going into your retirement with a 401k, and that's where the bulk of your money is, that one isn't built for preservation. It's not built for income. It is built for growth. We don't have all the parts there. So when you get into retirement, now we've got to make some changes. We got to figure out how this big 401k that you've been saving in for the last 20, 30 years is a check for you in retirement. Let's have that conversation. Here's the number, 984-300-1984, 984-300-1984, or the website is more2retire.com. Just spell that right out. There's a place for you to put some information in there, and Mark will reach out to you. So I saw a headline, and we talk about income in retirement, how important that is. It says, you need to know your income floor. I thought, okay, what's that all about? So this is the minimum amount of money that you need to cover your basic expenses in retirement. Some people would call that your monthly nut. You got to have this amount of money to live. Now, we want more money on top of that in order to enjoy ourselves in retirement, but this is your number. You got to have this number. Mark, where does that number come from? There's a lot of different ways, and you've already discussed them today on where you could pull that money from. But to me, that's non-negotiable. That might be a good word for that. I have to have $6,000 a month. And in 5 years, I need $7,000 a month. That is non-negotiable. Where does that money come from?
So the first place we do is we start and go over an expense list. Mm-hmm. And we talk about, oh, hey, you might have a mortgage, right? So that goes on the list. We look at utilities, which could be power, gas, those types of things. Then you've got your town bills, which is, water and sewer and garbage and all that stuff too. And then we start talking about, what you're spending at the grocery store. Then we talk about how much you might be eating out. Then we start talking about other things that you're going to spend money on, right? What did it cost to take care of your car last year? Are you in the market to buy a new car? Do we need to set up a fund for that? We start discussing different things like, well, you're going to spend time with the grandkids. You're going to spend a little extra money on them. How much should we anticipate you're going to spend on them and build this into our monthly expenses? What do we expect, for Christmas and other things and parties and all of the above. So we take all this into account. Now, you might build a fund for some of this stuff, but we want to count that into our expenses. Property taxes, that's important to understand. In the state of North Carolina, you've got, homes that you got to pay property taxes on. You got to pay property taxes in the state of North Carolina on vehicles as well. These are all conversations that we're going to have. You have this land over here, and now things are going up in value. Well, so are taxes as well. We need to build this in and understand taxes, inflation, expenses. And this is where these figures come from. This is what we need. This is where it starts.
Mm-hmm. And now the bucket of money labeled monthly expenses on it. I mean, we talk about annuities and structured notes and some of the more conservative side. Do you kind of go with, we have to have that bucket and that's got to be solid and that cannot be market money because it can't go down? Because if my expenses are $6,000 a month, I can't have a bad market month and find out that I can only take 55 That isn't going to work for me. So that part of the equation has got to be kind of figured out along the way. Talk to me about where that money comes from and how you figure that out.
Yes, because if you tell me you have a pension, you got a pension from work, or you got a military pension, whatever it might be. Well, do you hate that pension? No, most people like that pension. Well, that's an annuity. Okay. If you don't have something like that built in for income, and you're really solely focused on market money, we can show you ways where you can have some high distribution rates with the market. There's going to be some volatility with it. Okay. How about if you could have no volatility? What if you knew, no matter what happens, that check is coming? That's an annuity. That's what we would look towards. We would look towards either an annuity with an income rider, or we look towards an annuity that has some other types of set in place preservation tactics where you feel pretty confident where you're pulling the money from. So again, we want to build that in and give you, as Anthony Bourdain's show would say, no reservations. So the bottom line is, we want to make sure that you've got the income you need to build on that expense report. And we build the expense report, and that's how we build the income around it. We don't want anything to put bullets in that. So preservation. So this might be a good time to talk about the steps that we talk about on the website. And if somebody gives us a call, we always say it's a no cost, no obligation call. Let's just get to know each other and see what it is you're looking for, what it is you need, what are your goals and things like that, and see if we're a good fit. But kind of go through that a little bit. They can go to the website, which is moreToRetire.com, and they can see the steps there. Give me a little kind of a thumbnail sketch of what that's all about. Sure. There's a tab on there. It says process. That's our process guide. That's your financial pathway to more. And more is an acronym for the Marc Oslar Retirement Experience. And yes, we would love to provide more. And how do we provide more? Well, hey, first you come in and you talk to us and you say, okay, what can you do for us? Well, let me learn a little bit more about what you're doing. That's a treetop view. That's where we're kind of looking up from above, and we have that macroeconomics look at things. We're looking at buckets of money and trying to understand what you're doing. Then two, we're discovering your retirement desires, your dreams, your needs, your wants, all of those things. We put those in place. And then three, customize a plan for you. And that's where you become a client. After you become a client, then what are we going to do? We're going to be prepared for future adjustments, switches, and changes, because if you don't adjust, switch, or change in life, you're going to be stuck with your feet in the mud. And do you want to do that? Again, we talk about that short little story book, Who Moved My Cheese? You don't want to end up like one of the two mice, right? You want to end up like the other one, the one that got out. So the point is this: when it comes down to it, and the bottom line, the fifth thing we're going to do is we're going to give you ongoing support, and we're going to be there for you. And that's how we go about things. So if you want to get to know a little bit more about us, you can go to our website, moreToRetire.com. You can scroll down to the bottom of the screen, put in your data, say, hey, I'd love for you to run a financial report for me sometime, and anything like that. And then again, when you do want me to run a financial report for you, it's right on the website as well. If you go to the front page, top right-hand corner is a secure upload button. That'll come securely to us, and we'll run a report for you. So again, those are the ways you can reach out to us, and we'd love to be able to help you out.
Kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of the show. There are many of us that are a little paralyzed right now because of the news, the economics, the politics, all that's going on right now, and you kind of go, I'm just going to wait this one out a little bit. Why don't you give Marc a call and get the answer to the question, am I going to be okay? Just find out, do I have the money I need to make sure that I can handle my monthly basic expenses? Here's what we want to do in retirement. We like this. We love going down to Florida, and we have a specific place we always go. It's going to cost us this much. Bake all that into the pie. Let's figure that out together. Here's the number, 984-300-1984, 984-300-1984, or moreToRetire.com. All right, so the new numbers are out from last year, 2025. How much and what are people spending their money on in retirement? Y'all want to know, do I have enough money to retire? Well, here it is. Last year, the average retiree spent about $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year. Now, where did all that money go? 36% of it went on housing. So a certain amount of people still are, they have a mortgage. 15% was on transportation. Got to keep the cars going. 13% on healthcare. I still don't see any fun here. 13% on food. 7% on utilities. 3% on clothes. Still no fun here. And 3% on household operations. Only 5% was spent on entertainment. If you add that up, that's $3,000 a year. That seems kind of slim to me. So here's the question, Mark. As somebody comes in, they know some of these numbers. Do you think they know all these numbers? And do they think that they're going to spend an awful lot more than 5% on fun in retirement? I got to believe that number's got to be a little bit bigger in most people's minds.
There's no way I agree with these statistics here.
I had a feeling you'd say that.
It's not possible.
I know.
Okay. I mean, my gosh, you ever go to a game? I mean, go to a game, go travel, go on a trip, spend time with the grandkids and spend money on them, because that's going to happen. All right.
Yeah.
All of these things add up. And you tell me you don't stop by Taco Bell a few times a month, I mean, seriously. I know you're going to say, you can't do that with your health as you get older.
Oh, a little Taco Bell just kind of greases the wheels. You got to do that every now and then.
Absolutely. And better not forget the sauce either. So, yes, definitely the entertainment. I count up everything. I think about eating out, traveling, spending time with people, buying gifts, all of those things. We discussed this in the previous segment, but it's really important to understand that entertainment plays a bigger portion of 5% of your expenses by a lot. And that's why they'll tell me all this stuff. I'll look at it and then I'll say, okay, let's add another $1,000 or $2,000 a month on top of that. Okay. Because guess what? It's going to happen. You don't forget about repairs to your car or your house or anything else like that as well. So these are real conversations that we have. There's a lot of clients of mine, they'll say, hey, I want to rent in retirement because I don't want to think about repairs. I got you. I understand. Yeah. And that can happen too. And you don't necessarily have to think that you have to work off a certain budget. Let's customize it to what your needs are. But yes, let's be realistic about what you're really going to spend in retirement. And it might be a little bit more than you expect.
One of the things that we've talked about in the past is every time I read one of these articles, one of the things that they don't put in there is Social Security. And I wonder, if you have a couple that have both worked, it's not that unusual that, one's going to get $2,000, one's going to get $2,500, and there's $4,500 right there. It's almost $5,000 a month, which is what the average person spends in retirement, which means they're not even dipping in to the money that they've saved. Maybe if you spent $5,000 over what you get in Social Security, now this starts to make sense to me. Do you find that people are getting somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000 as a couple in Social Security? And then, boy, that really takes a certain amount of that buffer away. I kind of like the idea of me spending $5,000 of my money on top of the Social Security payment.
Yes, and then that's the other thing that comes up. Well, Randy, we talked about this several times on the show in the past as well, but the Social Security Trust Fund will be exhausted by 2032 if they don't fix it.
Right.
So everybody's Social Security, and you brought this up, you said their temporary plan is that when you get to 2032, if nothing was fixed, that they'll start to reduce everybody's Social Security by 7% per year for 4 years until it's reduced by 28%.
Yep.
That's not a plan people are looking forward to, and it would affect millions of people's lives. It would really affect a lot of people working off a fixed income. But yes, how can we build income above your Social Security? How can we be prepared for the what-ifs of the Social Security Trust Fund, and how do we work around all of that? All of this is extremely important, and we want to build those preservation tactics for income for you around that situation. And so, again, we want to know that when you put your head on the pillow at night and then you wake up, those deposits are coming.
Well, if you think about it, if you've applied for any job through your entire life, and I'm sure you've applied for a bunch, and you get in that interview, one of the first questions you have is, how much am I going to get paid? What's this position pay? Well, you know what? Your new job is going to be retirement, and you're going to be there for probably 15, 20, 25, 30 years. You should ask the same question. How much am I going to get paid? And the guy to answer that question is Marc Oslar. He can sit down with you and go through what you've saved. What does that mean for you per income per month on top of Social Security? And then if you say, I don't know if I can do it on that. All right, now the work begins. There's a gap. That's what we call that. There's a gap there. Let's figure that out together. Give Mark a call. Here's the number, 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984, or use the website, which is more2retire.com. Just spell that right out, more2retire.com. All right, when people think about the idea of having a financial advisor, I got to believe that they look at you and they go, he's like some kind of a fortune teller. It's like he knows about the market and he knows what I should buy and he knows when I should sell and he knows all these things like eeny, beeny, chilly, weeny, the spirits are about to speak. And and I think people look at you like that. And that's not really the case. And you've told me that many, many times. So tell me about your role. You know, people think you are one thing. What do you see as your role as a financial advisor? And what do you see you being different than other people and their idea of a financial advisor?
So I'll make this clear as day. One of the first things that I do is I pray. Okay, so I truthfully go to the Word of God and I pray because I want to make sure that we're right for each other. I want to see if I can help you in a way that maybe other people haven't helped you in the past. And that's really important for me to understand. So that's the first thing I do, okay? Then we build a relationship and try to understand what could I do differently for you and how can we go about this? One of the things I can't do is predict what's going to happen in a huge correction in the market, but we can have some indicators, all right? And the other thing is this. We participate in the market, but we're not the market makers. So understanding that there is no exact science to this, but we can research statistics and we can be confident about certain things that happen. Now, if you're worried about a correction, then let's not have all our eggs in one basket. Because if that's what you're doing, then that's going to be a problem for you in the future. And let's have that conversation now as opposed to later. Now, if we can spread things around and you don't mind some loss, well, then let's have a conversation about how we go about doing that. But again, the number one thing we do is we try to figure out, can I help? And this is exactly how I can help. And definitely don't have any fortune telling here. That's for sure.
But you hit on something that I think is really important, and that is if these things take place, to be prepared if these things, I have a jack in my car in case I get a flat tire. I need to, jack the car up, change a tire. I put a toolbox in my car with a flashlight. I put other things in there that I'm going to, jumper cables. I put that if I'm going to need it. I'm not going to need those things every day. I might need them once a year, but they're there if I need them. And I think building a retirement plan is kind of the same way, Mark. We don't know if we're going to have a market recession, decline, pull back. But if it does happen, we've got something in place. We have prepared for that. And I think that should be one of the main reasons people sit down with you.
Yeah, you brought up a good point because, who hasn't had a flat tire, right? It's not going to happen all the time, but maybe once a year or once every other year, you might have a flat tire. Things come up. My gosh, have you had somebody replace your roof before or some siding on your house? More than likely, you're going to get a flat tire somewhere. They're not going to get every single nail, but what I can tell you is that's how the market is too. The market's going to have some drops. It's going to have some indicators that tell us maybe we're going to go through a recession at some point, right? And you don't want the year 2000 to 2002 or the year 2007 to 2009 happen right before you go into retirement. Again, the one that dropped from 2000 to 2002 was S&P 500. It dropped by 49%, but 2007 to 2009, a great recession, as they called it, it dropped 56.5%. And you can't have that. People were calling their 401ks, 201ks, because they basically cut in half. And you don't want that to happen right before retirement. So that's why we have these conversations, because if, and the question is if, and we haven't had a market correction, Randy, in 17 years.
Not like
that's
that.
For real.
Yeah.
Truthfully, the last time we had a year of a loss in the market was 2022, right? So if we look back at 2022, S&P was down 18%, NASDAQ was down 33%, but we didn't have a real full correction. It has to be more than 20%, has to be for usually at least a 2-year period of time. We need to see an actual correction, and we haven't seen that. And so that's another conversation we have is, are you concerned about a correction? And if you are, what can we do about that? And again, we do use fixed index annuities for things like that. Of course we do. But if you don't think they can make money, you're wrong. They can.
Well, let's sit down and talk through that. I mean, all investigative reporters, and you kind of got to be that when you sit down and talk to someone like Marc, because you got to ask a lot of questions, the who, what, and why, where questions. What is my paycheck going to be? What happens if the market goes down? What happens if taxes go up? What happens if I get sick? What happens if my spouse passes? What happens to me? All these different things. Let's sit down and have a strategy for all of that, because these are the things that happen in your retirement years. And you should have a financial plan, a retirement plan that deals with all of them going in. Give Marc a call. Let's get going on putting that kind of a plan together. MoreToRetire.com is the website. MoreToRetire.com. There's a place for you to put some information in there, or just skip all that and give Marc a call. 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984. Maybe it's just a, hey, Marc, I don't know where I'm going with this. I just got to get started. That's okay. Let's start right there. Maybe you've got a financial advisor and a plan right now, and you're just not sure about it. Marc, I need a second opinion. I'm not sure about this. That's a great meeting, too. Give them a call, 984-300-1984. Thanks so much for listening today. We'll be here next week. We hope you will be, too. Remember the podcast. If you heard a little bit of the show, but you want to hear the whole thing, it's at iTunes and Spotify under the Marc Oslar Retirement Experience. Have a great weekend.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Marc Oslar Retirement Experience. Marc Oslar Retirement Experience is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth LLC, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Marc Oslar Retirement Experience are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risks, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. This radio podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be considered as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Marc Oslar Retirement Experience is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute legal or tax advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein are provided by third parties that have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Marc Oslar Retirement Experience. Market Guard is a firm that provides investment signals as well as portfolio allocation recommendations for a wide variety of model portfolios. Market Guard does not offer advice or enter into fiduciary relationships. Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.